Join me today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where I review the 2023 season for the Baltimore Orioles.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Don Martino. As you can see, I'm riding solo today. Matt's got the night off with the off season, as you have I'm sure I've already been able to tell things are working a little bit differently around here. But guys, if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And guess what? If you do, you get a little special opportunity here, because if you do that, you take a screenshot of your rating and review, you email it to us at fantasymds.com, or just send it to us on Twitter or Instagram. If that's easier for you, you have a chance to join our listener league for next year. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel, also gives you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And guys, before we get into a little bit of Orioles talk here, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed if you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. All right, guys. So, as I already mentioned, we were talking about those Baltimore Orioles today as we wrap up, those team reviews episodes, and we're probably going to do some, positional rankings and stuff like that, like too early rankings and stuff that we might have a little more fun with. But once again, let's talk about those Orioles. They finished the season winning that AL East, kind of, that young gun team that we thought maybe, hey, they might take a couple more years. They did it in 2023 to a tune of their record being 101 with the wins and 61 with the losses. I really love what they did. A lot of these young kids stepped up, a couple of all-stars this year, and just really looked good. I think we got to start with the catalyst of this young team. Let's talk about Adley Rutschman. I mean, just very, very strong season from him. He played 154 games, 588 at-bats, 84 runs, 31 doubles, a triple, 20 homers, 80 RBIs, and a 277 batting average. With, those points leagues, he was dominant with 92 walks, 101 strikeouts at only 25 years old. I have Adley as my number one catcher going in to next year. And, on today's episode, I'm bringing a little bit more information with me. So far with NFBC has a little bit of ADP. If you're not familiar with NFBC, it's the National Fantasy Baseball Championship. Probably one of the biggest, not worldwide, but one of the biggest fantasy platforms out there. A lot of the professionals play on there. There's been 17 drafts so far, and Adley's coming off the board as the number one overall catcher. ADP of 56 overall. I don't like to pay up for my catchers, especially in today's day and age, with being a little bit deeper at the catcher position. But I think if you were going to pay it for anybody, it's for Adley. The sky is the limit. I think he can go over 100 runs next year, over 100 RBIs next year. Honestly, there's even 30 home run upside that I think that's still untapped in the young Adley, who's a big 6'2", 230. I think there's another level there. The batting average, I think there's another level. There's a reason we always paid up for, Buster Posey. I think there's going to be a reason that we pay up for Adley Rutschman, and he's, the big catalyst here of this Baltimore team. Absolutely love what I see with the kid. And once again, I have him as my number one catcher going into next season. Let's talk about, another young gun here. No pun intended, but let's talk about Gunnar Henderson. Honestly, talking about all these young players with Baltimore just seems like they grow them on trees. Another 6'3", 220-pound lefty, Gunnar Henderson, going to be in that core for a long time. This kid's only going to be 23 next year. Gunnar started off the season a little bit slow, but that second half was monstrous. On overall numbers, look very strong too. 150 games for Gunnar last year. 560 at bats, 100 runs, 29 doubles, 9 triples. The speed is legit. 28 homers, 82 RBIs, 10 steals, 255 batting average. I think that batting average is going to be, a little bit better overall next year. As I mentioned, slow start for Henderson this past season, but really got it rocking, as the things went along. Let's talk about the first half, second half. First half, he played 79 games. That is Gunnar Henderson, 246 batting average with 13 homers. The second half, played 71 games. That's 8 less games. He had 57 runs, so more runs. He had more doubles, more triples. He had 2 more homers. He had 45 RBIs compared to 37 in the first half and a 264 batting average. So, he finished the season strong, too, with a 282 batting average in August, and Gunnar Henderson had a 268 batting average in September, October. I really think this kid, once again, another kid that has another level with this team, only going to get better. Honestly, I have Gunnar Henderson as my number 9 third baseman going into next season. I think we're really going to take him. A lot of, potential major 4-category helper. Maybe not major with the batting average, but I think it would be a plus batting average. And honestly, with steals, I think he can get you a couple more steals and, 35 home run upside here with Gunnar Henderson. So this Baltimore Orioles team has just really got a great core, for the next few years. Let's talk about one of their more veteran players. Let's talk about Ryan Mountcastle, right? Now, Mountcastle, I think he's just been around so long that, a lot of us still forget that Ryan Mountcastle is only going to be 27 years old next season. And he's just been consistently pretty solid. And this year, he really took a step back in the power department, but he took a step forward in the batting average department. That trade-off seemed to be working out decently for him this year. But you know what? He did only play 115 games. I think this is a guy who, we're going to probably get a decent value going into next season. I have Mountcastle as my number 18 first baseman for next year. Let's take a look and kind of see where ADP has him so far. Once again, I'm talking about that NFBC ADP, which is 17 games. They have Goldschmidt, Mountcastle, actually is the number 21 first baseman off the board, pick 226. I think there's a lot of value here because I think Mountcastle has 30 plus homer upside. He's going to probably be hitting. Let's see where, Roster Resource has him hitting 7th. There's going to be a lot of RBIs. The runs might not be fantastic. Just talking about a guy that could have 30 plus homers, in a prime season. 90, 100 RBIs, batting average, honestly, career 263 hitter. I think he could be right around there. Looks like he took a little bit step forward this year in the batting average department. So Ryan Mountcastle, somebody that we're going to get out of value, it seems. And I'm not mad at it. Maybe I don't want him as my number 1 first baseman, but you know what? If you really waited and you get him at that pick 220, how upset with you are you with, 70 runs, once again, 27 home runs minimum, I think, if he stays healthy and gives you 140. And then I think the RBIs, as I mentioned, could be very, very good for him. And the batting average, I think, is going to be solid. So I think there's going to be good value on Mountcastle in this Orioles team that won 100 games this past season and has potential to do the same next season, right? So just somebody that I think we could definitely see value in drafting going into this next season. But before we move on and got a couple of more young bats here, we got a couple of starting pitchers that we want to get to. I do have to talk to you guys about a sponsor real quick. Guys, let's talk about FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options that include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit fanduel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Once again, FanDuel, an official betting partner of the NFL. All right, guys, so let's get back into things here and let's talk about Cedric Mullins. Now, Cedric Mullins had that big breakout 30-30 season a few years ago and hasn't really been the same guy since. I know the injury bug has bitten him a little bit, especially this last season. He had that abductor strain back in July, and then even before that, he had a groin, which really limited him. But even if you go back and you look at his 2022 season where he was pretty healthy, the homers went down from 30 to 16. He still did hit that 30 steal, 34 steal number, which is good. But the batting average went from 291 to 258. It was 233 this year. I think Mullins bounces back from the numbers that we saw this year, but I don't really think we see that 30 home run number again. Even though he did hit 15 in 116 games this past season, I think you're looking at more of like a high of like 22, 23 homers. Obviously there's the 30 steals. That batting average, honestly, it's so hard to put a strong number on what that batting average could look like. If he hits around that career 257 mark of, that he has over 546 games, almost 2,000 at bats, I think that's reasonable. So it's just a matter of where we're going to get Cedric Mullins. So, let's go back and let's look at that ADP again to kind of get, this is guys, you're seeing off-season stuff here. This is what we do, and we're kind of sharing, the process with you here of how we do it. Kind of want to look at this ADP. We already broke down the numbers for Mullins and kind of just want to see if I think it's high, if I think it's low. Right now, number 26 overall. So it looks like in, 12-man league, a high-end outfielder number 3. Am I comfortable with that? In a way, because I think the runs are going to be solid for Mullins if he stays healthy all season. The home runs aren't going to kill you. The RBIs should be decent with Mullins. Depends if they, want to hit him leadoff or if they kind of want to, hit him towards the end of that lineup. We shall see. That's to be determined. The steals are going to be strong, and then the batting average is the only part where if you got, let's say like an Acuna, you got some Freddie Freeman, you got some, high-end bats at the top of your draft that are going to give you batting average, you can take that risk and get you your steals and runs with Cedric Mullins, and he's not going to kill you necessarily in RBIs or home runs either. So, I think there is room on Mullins. I want to see where I had him. I probably had him a little bit lower than that, honestly, going into next season, but I'm still fine-tuning my rankings. As I said, this offseason is a process, and we kind of see. I actually had Mullins really low. I have him at like 38, but, I got a deep dive here and kind of see, was it really just the injuries last year? Is everything else sustainable, and kind of get an idea of where they're going to hit him in the lineup going towards next season. And then I'll make my full-blown assessment. But honestly, looking at that ADP, I'm not mad at him as my outfielder number 3 in a 12-man league going into next season. Once again, that's Cedric Mullins. Let's move on. Let's talk about, as Matt calls him, the bank, Anthony Santander. Honestly, had a pretty strong season. It was a ups and downs type of season, peaks and valleys here with Santander type of season. But overall, you're not really mad at the numbers. 153 games for Santander, 591 at bats, 81 runs, 41 doubles. So that's really helping you in those points leagues. 28 homers, 95 RBIs, and a 257 batting average. Honestly, that's his best batting average since 2019. So that's more of an upside batting average with Santander, but honestly was very, very helpful in a lot of fantasy leagues. That power was great. The counting stats are great. I really like the prospects of Santander hitting near the top of the lineup with Baltimore going into next season. Is just kind of an anchor there. That big guy, that a big 6'2", 230 switch hitter that can honestly get it all done. He just doesn't really steal bases, even though he chipped in 5 this year. I really think there's going to be value. I have Santander at my number 32 outfielder going into next year. Let's see where they have him so far in the 17 drafts that have been done on the NFBC platform. 32, so kind of right in sync with ADP, pick 144. I really love that. So you're getting a lot of value at taking him that late. Just once again, not really going to steal much bases. The batting average is going to be probably, closer to that career 248 number over 591 games career for Santander, 2,200 at bats. He's going to be 29. So I don't really think he's taking anything to another crazy level. There's that 30 plus home run out upside. Yeah, for sure. But I think that's going to come at the sacrifice of the 257 batting average we saw this past season. So, we shall see. I think things are to be determined here with Santander, but it looks like another guy that we're getting good value on this Baltimore team that only is going to get better. I don't know if the win total number gets better, but them as a team as a whole, things just look really bright for the future. And let's talk about somebody who got the little cup of coffee this year. Let's talk about Jordan Westburg. He really didn't blow anybody out of the water, but, he's another one just to, chop off the old tree there. You talk about all these Baltimore Oriole guys, 6'2", 210 for Westburg. Once again, he played only he played, that's more games than I thought he played. He played 68 games this year in the bigs. Had 208 at bats, 26 runs, 17 doubles, 2 triples, 3 homers, 23 RBIs, 4 steals, and hit 260. And honestly, Westburg is very, very talented. If you look at that 2022 minor league season for Westburg, 138 games, 544 at bats, 96 runs, 39 doubles, 3 steals, 27 homers, 106 RBIs, 12 steals, a 265 batting average. He hit 295 in the minors last year with over 68 games. Once again, Jordan Westburg we're talking about here. He plays a little bit of second. He plays a little bit of third. I think he's even played some outfield. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but a lot of upside here, power, a little bit of speed. Honestly, I think he's got a spot next year, playing second base, probably hitting near the bottom of that lineup. But honestly, Westburg for next year, I think I've got him buried, to be honest with you. I have him 26th at third base. I'm not sure of the eligibility of how he's going to wind up next year. I can give it the old check, though. He did play 50 games at second and 29 at third, so he keeps eligibility in both of those. In my second base rankings, let's see if I have him better. I have him at 31 at second base. Honestly, I could see that moving up, though, maybe a couple of spots. But, second base, I think, is a position that's going to be deep next year. Westburg, if I had to throw an early prediction out on what I think his numbers can finish like, let's say he plays 140 games, I honestly think we're going to see like 22 homers, maybe 85 runs. RBIs could be close to 75. The batting average could be a 270. Maybe we see 10, 15 steals, and that's going to be useful. That's going to be useful in fantasy baseball. Maybe, nice little role player, nice little bench player, nice little middle infield type guy. Even that corner if he's playing third as well. I think things are just bright, not for Westburg, but for Baltimore as a whole. You can't talk about this team without just feeling really, really good about their future. And when you talk about the future of, this team, there's really one guy that, comes to, at least the top of my mind, and it's Jackson Holliday. We have to talk about Jackson Holliday because, honestly, he's the number one prospect in all of baseball going into next year. If you don't know his dad, former pro Matt Holliday, was an absolute monster, all-star, caliber player, all-star type player. Back in the day, played with a bunch of different teams. But, I think the young Jackson Holliday is going to follow right in dad's footsteps and just be an all-star for years and years to come. He's going to be 20 years old next year. But honestly, Jackson Holliday as a 19-year-old made it all the way up to AAA this past year. As a 19-year-old, he played in literally 4 different leagues this year. Once again, 125 games, 477 bats, and this is, combined all his different leagues: 113 runs, 30 doubles, 9 triples, 12 homers, 75 RBIs, 24 steals, 101 walks to 118 strikeouts. Look at that plate discipline as a 19-year-old, and he hit 323. This is a guy, when you talk about, a guy can do everything, it's Jackson Holliday. He can do everything on the diamond. I guarantee he can even go out there and pitch if you ask him to. 6 foot, 185, lefty. Kind of really love that frame, that build. Honestly, I think even if you put on 5 more pounds of muscle, you're talking about 20 plus home run upside with, I think, honestly, no joke, the kid could steal 40 plus bags. The batting average, I think, is always going to be over 300. And then it's just a matter of games played and where he gets in the lineup with this Baltimore team. Even if he breaks, with the camp with the team, which I think there's definitely a potential to do with Jackson Holliday. Another one to do 150 game prediction, 100 plus runs. I honestly think 20 homers is not out of the question. Bunch of doubles and triples. You're talking about 75 RBIs. I want to say 35. I'll say, to be super accurate, 37 steals and over 300 batting average, maybe 310. And I really think that's possible. I think Jackson Holliday is of that Acuna, Tatis type where the kid can honestly just come up and just be a star in the league right away. So I honestly, let's see if we can find if he's being drafted. When we're talking about ADP, let's keep that trend going. Where is Jackson Holliday going? Pretty sure you're just going to see that shortstop eligibility. Wow, Jackson Holliday's coming off the board, the 20th shortstop, pick 188. I don't think I've worked him into my shortstop rankings. I have 40 shortstops ranked for next year. I mean, if we get word realistically that he's breaking camp with the team, are we taking him over the likes of Christopher Morel, Thairo Estrada, who I have at 16 and 17 respectively? At 15, I have Dansby Swanson. 14, I have Bogarts. Excuse me, folks. I'm sorry about that. I totally had to sneeze right there. So I think I'd rank Jackson Holliday maybe even as high as 15 if I got the word, hey, Jackson Holliday's breaking camp. Honestly, he would fly up ADP right too, because I said shortstop 20, that's pick 188, so that's super late right now, but honestly that flies up into the top 100 if we get word that Jackson Holliday is going to break camp with the Baltimore Orioles. All right, guys, this is actually going pretty smooth so far. We're going to get into some starting pitching here, and we're going to talk about their future ace. Let's talk about Grayson Rodriguez. Honestly, I loved Grayson coming into the year. A guy who, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he did break camp with the team. Or if not, no, he didn't break camp with the team. He came up, a few starts in. I believe they wanted to, try and get him tuned up, just so he was ready. But he did come up pretty quickly. And, he looked really bad his first run through with the team. Didn't look like himself. And I'm going to try and break down these stats exactly for you guys as far his first game was April 5th. Didn't look great. Didn't look horrible, though. And then he had a bunch of bad starts up until May 26th, though. It was 10 starts before he got sent down. And I'll read you guys off those numbers in Grayson Rodriguez's first 10 starts. He did go 7-3, which is good. That was just crazy because it was 45 innings for Grayson, 56 strikeouts, 58 hits, 21 walks, 13 homers, 7.35 ERA, and batters were hitting 3.07 against him. And he didn't look right. I think he had to go down and work on a few things. He was number 1 overall pitching prospect in baseball, and everyone just hyped this guy as the next big thing. And sometimes it's hard to live up to. We forget these guys are only human, and they're, have human emotions, and it's just really tough to adjust sometimes, even when you are a Grayson Rodriguez type. So he came back up, let's say, on July 17th. Grayson had 5 innings, 4 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. Still didn't look great, right? But we're going to focus on his start from July 12th through the end of the season, and that was on September 27th. That's 12 starts for Grayson Rodriguez to finish off the season. 7-5 was the result, and that's funny because he had a better record, at the beginning of the season when he wasn't pitching great. But once again, the last 12 starts for Grayson Rodriguez, 71 innings, 69 strikeouts, only 19 walks, 56 hits, 2.26 ERA. Batters were hitting 217 against him. The whip was, right under 1. He looked fantastic. You didn't see those big, huge strikeout numbers, but I think that's to be, coming for Grayson. Honestly, I think when we see that finely tuned, finished product, Grayson Rodriguez, in, 2-3 years, I think you're talking about a guy that's going to be notoriously a top 10 overall starting pitcher for fantasy. He's only going to be 24 next year. So I think we see this kid at 25. You're talking about an ace. Honestly, going into next year, I have Grayson Rodriguez as my 24th overall starting pitcher. So you're talking about, a low end number 2, high end number 3 in your 12-man leagues. And let's kind of see if we can get a little view of where Grayson's coming off the board as far as this ADP for next year. You have Strider, Cole, Ohtani, Burns, Castillo, that's 5, Gausman 6, Wheeler 7, Gallen 8, Glasnow 9, Lopez 10, Nola, Skubal, Peralta. Damn, so you kind of got some time here before you see Grayson, and it looks like he's right around number 25 overall starting pitcher. So that's where we're gonna have to take him next year. I think it's a little bit of you're kind of paying for the upside, but with a guy like Grayson Rodriguez, you kind of have to. And I really think that he'll wind up being worth it. You're going to see, a bunch of years to come where Grayson is just a guy that we're going to enjoy having. Big 6'5" dude, lefty. Righty. He actually bats lefty. 230 pounds. This kid is just going to be a phenom in the league. I think this is, one of the last years where we're going to take him outside the top 10 starting pitchers. Let's move on to, a couple of other starting pitchers that, held the fort down this season. Let's talk about Kyle Bradish. Actually had a strong season, was a lot better than anybody expected him to be. And, I'm just kind of shocked when you look back at the season he had as a 26-year-old, 12 wins, 7 losses, a 2.83 ERA, 30 starts, 168 innings, 168 strikeouts, and a 104 whip. Bradish was never really super highly touted prospect. He, never really put up, mind-blowing numbers in the minors, had some, a couple decent seasons, but nothing that really led anybody to believe that he was just going to come out and, be a monster like this. I think, he kind of, even his FIP was a 3.27. Once again, FIP is fielding independent pitching, kind of an ERA indicator, just like, a 3.27 FIP and a 2.83 ERA, says a lot about him. I think he's a guy who's probably going to get a bargain next year. Where did I even put Bradish? I put him at, I think I probably put him a little bit too far down, to be honest with you. I'm not even sure where I put him, but honestly, looking at it now, I can see taking this guy as, like your SP5 if we can get him in that range. Another guy, let's just go back to NFBC ADP real quick and kind of see where he's going on there too. Kind of just give us, a little idea of, wow, he's actually going as number, like 37 starting pitcher at pick 98. He's inside the top 100. Is it worth it? Honestly going to have to dive deeper on him and really kind of see, a deep dive into the stuff. If you want to do a quick one real quick while I'm talking about him here, I always like Baseball Savant, kind of gives you some good rankings. So his fastball, not really great, more of the breaking stuff looking like it's done. He got hit a little bit hard this year, but, doesn't really walk guys, gets a decent amount of Ks and whiffs. The velocity is decent at 95, with the average on his fastball. Good ground balls, guy. I think there's upside here, especially on a team like Baltimore. The coaching there is fantastic. I don't know if I'm going to have him inside my top 40. I, once again, more see him realistically as a number 5 starting pitcher, maybe even a number 6 starting pitcher. But we shall kind of see where this thing goes with Bradish. But that's where I'm kind of feeling, things out for him next year. I think as we're getting close to wrapping this thing up, let's go into the closer. Let's talk about Felix Bautista. And, the thing with Bautista was he was going to be the number one closer in fantasy baseball, but he got hurt towards the end of the season. And, that really threw things off for the overall numbers with him. But honestly, he was going out there. He was striking out everybody with that elbow injury. What I believe it was a UCL. I'm pretty sure he's going to be fine for next season. I haven't heard anything crazy about him yet, but Bautista's numbers on the year: 8 wins, 2 losses, a 1.48 ERA, 56 games. He had 33 saves, 61 innings, 110 strikeouts, and an 0.91 WHIP. I mean, if this guy's healthy, definitely a top 3 closer for next season. I have him at 3. Next year, I have it Devin Williams, Hader, and Batista. You could take those guys, shuffle them up however you want. I honestly think they're all going to be monster closers for next season. Batista is going to be 29 next year, and he's been nothing but absolutely dominant his whole career so far. I don't foresee anything changing with that. So that being said, let's talk about his backup. Honestly, if you do play those hold leagues, this guy did come out of nowhere a bit. Changed up a couple of his pitches, and I believe his velocity was up too. Let's talk about Yennier Cano real quick. And when Felix Bautista came out, this is the guy who stepped up for them and honestly had a monster year. A 2.11 ERA for Cano through 72 games. He had 8 saves, 72 innings, 65 strikeouts, and a clean 1 WHIP. Cano was just very, very good. I don't know if he's going to stay with Baltimore, if they're looking to move him or anything of the sort. 29-year-old who did kind of have that come out of nowhere type season, but he's still worth mentioning and talking about because he was just very strong this season. And in those hold leagues, he might be your number 1 guy. But guys, that's pretty much for it for me today. Wrapping things up here. As I said, we're gonna go from these team-based episodes to more positional stuff early, ADP, and kind of me and Matt and I will debate some of our rankings. But guys, that's all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Be sure to look out for our final episodes here. We got Diamondbacks, Phillies, and a bunch of other good teams coming up. But guys, until then, see you.